जय श्री राधे। श्री वल्लभाधीश्वर की जय, श्री गोवर्धननाथ जी की जय, श्री गिरिराज धरन की जय। सब वैष्णवों को सादर सप्रेम जय श्री कृष्ण, जय श्री राधे. Today is day 41 of the readings, and we are commencing with part 2 of the Varta, the story of Jagannath Joshi. Jagannath Joshi repeatedly made an offering of very hot rice pudding to the Lord. When Sri Acharyaji visited his village of Keralu, he went to Jagannath's home. Sri Thakurji showed him his scalded and red lips and tongue. Sri Acharyaji asked him how this had come about, and Sri Thakurji told him that Jagannath Joshi always offered very hot sweet rice. Sri Acharyaji asked Jagannath Joshi why he did this, and he replied that he thought it was appropriate to offer everything hot. Sri Acharyaji told him never to offer hot rice pudding because the Lord liked to immediately put his fingers into it. All other preparations may be offered hot. Jagannath began to comply with this instruction. Bhav Prakash. One might ask, why did Sri Thakurji not accept that hot offering? Why did he not just tell Jagannathji? Since that day when Jagannathji thought that the Lord's clothes might get polluted from his eating, he began to communicate much less with Jagannath Joshi. He only accepted the offerings because of Joshiji's love. Part 3. One day Jagannathji Joshi set out for Adel to have Sri Acharyaji's sight. Whilst he was travelling, the day of the Anakut, or Mountain of Rice festival, occurred. Jagannath Joshi asked one Vaishnav named Mathur, who was travelling with them, to go to the nearest village and acquire some very nice foodstuffs, whatever he could find, but especially lentils, vegetables, clarified butter and sugar, etc. The Vaishnava proceeded to the village, but it was very small, and all they could get was barley. When he came back to the camp, he informed Jagannathji that he had only been able to get some barley because the village was so small. Jagannath regarded this as the Lord's wish. He asked the Vaishnava to sort and clean the grains, which he did, and Jagannath cooked it in some water. The Vaishnava told him they also had, after the cleansing process, the shape of the barley, and that it should soak in water and tie it up over the cooking pot. This will soon cook in the steam and become a spongy dish. Dokala, he said. Jagannath tied it up over the pot. Soon the barley grains began to boil. Then the dokala fell into the pot and everything mixed into one dish. Seeing this, Jagannath was very disappointed, but he regarded it as the Lord's wish. He offered the dish just as it was and accepted the Mahaprasad afterwards. Then they all went to sleep. In his sleep, Sri Thakurji told him that the dokala was giving him a stomachache. Jagannath made a mixture of aniseed, caraway and clove and offered it to the Lord. Sri Thakurji felt some relief. Jagannath was extremely full of remorse that he had caused Sri Thakurji so much botheration. We will go to another better village now, he decided. Inner meaning, Bhav Prakash. Throwing light on the inner meaning. The purport of the story follows. Jagannath Joshi's character is very simple. Sri Thakurji was happy with him and knew that his thinking that the Lord's clothes would get polluted by his plate of food was only due to his ignorance. After that, Jagannath felt very upset and hardly spoke to anyone. He was so simple that he did not analyse or weigh things up or try to be clever. Whatever came to his mind naturally, that he did. Seeing this, the Lord was quite contented with him. He told Jagannath that his stomach was paining just to experience his love. He was so affectionate that he felt very sorry for the Lord and prepared the remedy of aniseed, caraway and clove. This made the Lord very pleased, and he told Jagannathji that he was now relieved of his stomach pain. Jagannath Joshi was also pleased by this. If he had not had such a sweet nature and had been full of the pride of his learning and cleverness, he might have thought, the Lord has a stomachache, and he is supposed to be God. However, Jagannath Joshi was a great and straightforward Vaishnava with no deceit in his character. Sri Thakurji prefers those who are full of affection and simple by nature. Sri Thakurji forgives and blesses such beings. They never perish or follow a wrong path. Part 4. One day Jagannath Joshi opened the doors after Uthapan to Sri Thakurji's temple in his own home and stood at Sri Thakurji's side to fan him with a fan of peacock feathers. At that time, a Garasiya Rajput had come there for the Lord's holy sight, as had several other Vaishnavas. As they were enjoying, an old lady threw a flower garland from some distance and it fell down on Sri Thakurji's throne. Jagannath felt very angered. He picked up the garland and threw it outside. There was another Rajput standing there and the garland landed round his neck. The Garasiya Rajput felt very insulted that Jagannath had not honoured him with the garland and decided to kill him. He kept his sword by his side but didn't get a chance to commit the act. One day, however, Jagannath Joshi was returning to the village just from outside, where he had been brushing his teeth, and the Garasiya Rajput approached him from behind and lifted up the sword to strike. The Lord grabbed his hand from above and told him not to touch Jagannath Joshi. The Rajput tried very hard to bring his hand down, but it stayed stuck up in the air. Jagannath Joshi turned round and saw the Lord standing there looking very tired from the effort of holding his hand up, and he exclaimed, "Go away, you sinner, what have you done?" At that moment the Rajput threw down his sword and fell at Jagannath's feet. Bhav Prakash. The Rajput suddenly realized Joshi to be a saintly person because he was unable to move his hand. Therefore he threw down his sword and fell at Jagannath Joshi's feet. He begged Joshi to forgive him. The latter did so and kept telling him it was all right, but the Rajput would not leave him alone and asked to become his disciple. "You are a great soul and I am a sinner," he said. "By your grace alone I will be liberated, otherwise there is no place for me." Jagannath Joshi felt sorry for him and invited him to come to his house, where he would give him the Krishna mantra. He bathed and told the Rajput to also bathe there, and then he initiated him with Sri Krishna's name. But then he made sure to get that initiation repeated by Sri Gosaiji when he came there to Gujarat. The Rajput became a worthy Vaishnava. Bhav Prakash. The Rajput had been following the Vaishnava around with the intention of killing him, but he was liberated instead. Of course, one can be liberated by behaving very nicely with a great devotee, so what to speak of this incident? Jagannath had become angry in front of Sri Thakurji and thrown down the garland outside. Anger is like a very low and demeaning emotion, so he was guilty of an offence. This is why this incident occurred, to mitigate the offence. The sin was washed and the Rajput was saved at the same time. The Rajput's intelligence was purified and he fell at Jagannath Joshi's feet. The Rajput was not related to the eternal Leela, but was eligible for liberation. We read in the Ras Panchadhyay that all one's emotions should always be exclusively directed towards the Lord, such as lust, anger, fear, affection, union and good-heartedness. The Rajput was saved through his anger thus directed. This demonstrates just how much of a great devotee Jagannath Joshi was, a recipient of Sri Acharyaji's great grace. Thus concludes the story of Jagannath Joshi from Kheralu, though there is really no end to his tale. Continuing with Varta 31, the story of Jagannath Joshi's mother from Keralu, Part 1. She had two sons. The elder was Narahari Joshi and the younger was Jagannath Joshi. Bhav Prakash. In the eternal Leela, this Mataji is Sri Swaminiji's Saki named Chabi Sindhi. Chabi Sindhi also has two Sakis named Gandhareka and Sorabhi. They appeared here as the Mataji and had two sons, Narahari and Jagannath Joshi. These two sons' father was a real rascal. He had no respect for any religious man, saint, learned man, priest or Vaishnava. If any such person came to the village, he would give them trouble by looting them at night. He openly opposed any kind of righteous path. Sri Acharyaji was travelling from Adel to Gujarat and at that time passed through the village of Keralu. He made camp in a small garden outside the village. Jagannath Joshi's mother was on her way to fetch water. Sri Acharyaji was discoursing on the story of the wives of the sacrificial Brahmins from his Sri Subodhini, and she felt very inspired when she heard it. She requested Sri Acharyaji to accept her as a disciple. She also advised him not to stay there too long because of her rascal husband. She told him that her husband would attack the camp at night and loot them all. Sri Acharyaji responded, "What is there for him to steal here? Tell him that we are here. As for you, I know that you are a divine soul, but how can I accept you now, for your husband will oppose your path. However, he will be dead within 5 years' time. Then you come to Adel with your two sons, and I will initiate you all then. Now is not the right time." The Mataji bowed to him, collected her water, and went home. Sri Acharyaji stayed in Kerala for 3 nights. Her husband heard of this, but still did not go to the camp. Sri Acharyaji proceeded from there towards Varta to see Sri Ranachorlalji. The Mataji fell pregnant, and Narahari Joshi was born. In the 3rd year after that, Jagannath Joshi was born. When 5 years had passed, one renunciate arrived in Kerala. He held discussions with all the Brahmins there in the middle of the night. Jagannath Joshi's father went there with the intention of looting. The sannyasi had a sickle placed next to him with which he killed Jagannath's father, and then he ran away for fear of reprisals. The next morning the villagers found his body and performed his last rites. The Mataji then recalled Sri Acharyaji's predictions about her sons and their father, which had all now come true, and so she decided, on the pretext of going on a pilgrimage, to go to Sri Acharyaji in Adel and there to become his disciple. Knowing that her life would thus be fulfilled, and seeing that she now had no obstacles in her way, she left the house and the 2 sons in the charges of a reliable and trusted person. She had a lot of wealth, so after putting enough aside for her son's care, she packed the rest into a cart and set off from that place on the excuse of bathing at Prayag. She arrived in Prayag after some days. There she donated some money to auspicious causes and then proceeded to Adel. When she arrived there, she prostrated before Sri Acharyaji and told him that everything he had predicted had come true. She had 2 sons, her husband died, and now there were no impediments before her, so she said, "I know you are the Supreme Lord himself. Please take me to your shelter. I have already wasted most of my life." Sri Acharyaji told her to bathe in Sri Yamunaji, and when she had done that, he initiated her with the Lord's name and Brahmasambandh, and instructed her to henceforth serve the Lord. She asked him to procure a swarupa for her to serve. He told her to go to Prayag, and there she found a swarupa which was with a sculptor. She gave a donation for him. Sri Acharyaji bathed him in the 5 nectars and made him her responsibility. She stayed some time with Sri Acharyaji and learnt all the ways of Seva from him before returning to Gujarat. She began to look after her Lord very opulently, with attention to detail, with lots of affection, and before too long the Lord began to communicate directly with her. We continue the reading of the story of Jagannath Joshi's mother tomorrow. Jai Jai Shri Radhe, Shri Vallabhadhish ki Jai, Shri Govardhan Nachi ki Jai ho, Shri Vrajdham ki Jai ho, Shri Gosaiji Parama Dayalu ki Jai ho, Sab Vaishnavan ko Jai Shri Krishna, Jai Jai Shri Radhe.